Let's start with Chapter 3, A Journey of 1,000 Miles. Chapter 3, A Journey of 8,000 Miles, starts with just a single step, as the saying goes. Or perhaps a couple of dozen steps in the case of a 48-hour startup. Now that we have a more refined version of our idea, ready to put into action, this is a good time to write a complete list of tasks that need to be completed over the remaining day and a half. Building a business in such a short time might well seem overwhelming, but once you break down the entire process into a couple of dozen tiny steps, it suddenly starts to feel very possible. There are some online applications that you might find helpful for managing your to-do lists for this project, and indeed in general, such as Evernote, Tooksto, Mindjet, and Flow. Or, much more likely, you can just grab a pen and paper and write a list of the steps that you imagine you need to take to go from having your idea in your head to having a product ready to sell. Topic 1. To-do list. Day 1, 10:10 a.m. Of course, your list will be different to mine, but here are the steps that I plan to complete in the next couple of days to get my product to market. And just for the satisfaction of it, I've crossed out the tasks that I've already done. Day 1, already done. Write down my interests. Identify problems with these things. Brainstorm possible solutions. Match solutions to business models. Select the ideas that seem feasible. Pick the idea that has the best chance of success. Run the grandma test. Still to do. Talk to a customer. Research the competition's pricing. Decide my price and figure out if it's possible. Check I wouldn't need to sell an insane volume to cover fixed costs. Sense check the idea with an expert. Come up with a name. Create a strapline. Register a domain name. Set up a company email address. Register a phone number. Find a designer to create the brand and packaging. Create a mood board. Choose possible fonts. Brief designer to create logo and branding. Source the product. Order off-the-shelf packaging for the first batch of product. Order promotional materials. Find food stylist and photographer to shoot my product. Write the basic text and info for the packaging and website. Time to catch some sleep. Day 2. Print the label designs at a print shop, attached to packaging. Get the food stylist to shoot the product. Build the website. Create social media accounts. Upload the final product images to the website. Figure out how to get the first customers. Send out the first order. When I break the process down into these simple steps, it seems totally feasible, even given the tight time frame. There's a lot to do, but there are quick and easy ways to do each of these steps, and I'll share how I do each of them as we go through the book. Topic 2. Talk to a customer. This step is so blatantly simple and so easy that it is often overlooked. In all companies, we develop really abstract ideas of who our customers are and what it is they want. We read studies about them and market research reports and read up on the latest trends. Sometimes, though, the best answers can be found by simply talking to our customers and listening to what they say. Now, Steve Jobs famously said that his customers didn't know what they wanted until he showed it to them. I think it's true that people don't really know what they want. I certainly don't. So just asking people straight up what they want is not going to give you useful information. However, you can learn a lot from what people actually do. Which of your competitors' products do they buy and why? Where did they first hear about that brand? Where do they buy it from? What do they do with it? What problems do they have with it? That sort of stuff. The kind of questions you ask will be dependent on what kind of product you are selling. Particularly if you are trying to sell to businesses, there is a huge amount of value in understanding how they already solved the problem you are working on and what about it still causes them pain. The first step is going to be finding a customer, or a few customers, to talk to. In my case, since my product will be selling through stores, it makes sense to try getting in touch with a retail buyer to ask what it would take for them to put something like this onto their shelves. Topic 3. Ask a buyer. When I was originally trying to sell Super Jam to Waitrose and I showed up at 16 years old wearing my dad's suit, I received what was probably the most useful advice of my whole career. All I had was an idea, I didn't really know how to put it into action, and sitting across a table from me was someone who could tell me how to do it. Sometimes, when people are trying to sell their product to a retailer, especially a big one, they think that the only approach is to go there and pretend they have all the answers, with all guns blazing, the apprentice style. In fact, if you can just be honest with the buyer, tell them what you're trying to achieve and why, you'd be amazed at how willing they will be to give you some advice. Whatever kind of customer you're trying to sell to, the most important thing for you to do is actually listen. Be willing completely to change your concept in light of what customers say. If everyone tells you it needs to be blue, then it needs to be blue. So many entrepreneurs are totally pig-headed about their idea, they just listen to the information that strengthens their case, ignoring whatever presents a challenge to their concept. Quite often they don't even ask anyone what they think of it, so cocksure are they that their idea is perfect just the way it is. Having the humility simply to ask other people for advice is probably the #1 way of increasing the speed at which you can develop fantastic products. When I went through the process of getting feedback from the Waitrose buyer, he told me everything I was doing was wrong. The labels, the recipes, the price. But he did say that, in general, my idea of 100% fruit jam was a good one. With his encouragement, I went back to the drawing board and gave everything another shot. Working with a designer, I created a set of labels, found a factory to work with me and came up with a new range of flavors. Unfortunately, when I presented these ideas to the buyer, he explained that the labels we created were too silly, the factory I had chosen was too expensive and he didn't even like the flavors I had made, so basically everything had to be thrown in the bin and I started all over again. Even though I was deflated, the buyer told me that I still had a good idea. He gave me advice about what my packaging design needed to achieve, what our pricing needed to be and what sort of flavors he thought would work best. So when I did finally go back to him for a third time, having listened to everything he said, it was pretty hard for him to say no. He had become so involved in the process of developing the idea that in some ways it probably became his baby too. Of course, that wouldn't have been the case if I'd just ignored his feedback. As for my oats business, it's probably not practical to imagine that I will be able to lift up the phone to the Tesco breakfast cereals buyer and pick their brains about it. But there are certainly lots of people I can talk to very easily who can help to give me a steer on how to develop my product so that it would appeal to them. At this point, you should have absolutely no fear of being bold enough just to ask a potential customer what they think of your idea. For me, the opportunity is right around the corner, in the form of the local independent grocery store. Day 1, 10:22 a.m., I head around there right away, and buy a few groceries so that I don't feel guilty about wasting their time asking for advice. As I'm at the checkout, I ask the man serving me how his weekend was and use our casual conversation as an opportunity to tell him a bit about what I'm up to. At the moment I'm working on creating a new premium porridge brand. Maybe you'd have some thoughts on it actually. Looks like you already sell a few here. Do you find they're popular? Turns out he has a bit of an interest in porridge oats himself, and he invites me over to where they are stocked in the store so we can talk further about them. He's actually quite enjoying being asked his opinion at this point. Now, what you want to do is make sure that the packaging is really good. Something eye-catching. Don't go for a bag. Those just look so messy on the shelves, and when they burst it's a total nightmare. I ask him whether, if I was to come back tomorrow with a couple of cases of product, with eye-catching packaging and not in a bag, he'd try them out on his shelves. Tomorrow? You're going to come back here tomorrow with the product? He asks, wondering what on earth is going on. Not entirely sure if I am joking or not. He agrees. Okay, it's a deal. Topic 4. Call a customer. What you're trying to sell will determine how you can contact potential customers. One method that I have used in the past is to get hold of contact numbers of people who have opted into marketing calls and simply ring them up. You can buy databases online of all sorts of groups of consumers, for example, those who have bought a new car in the past 6 months or those who own a dog. You'll be amazed at how easy it is, and it'll probably make you a little warier about how widely you share your own data. A quick Google search will reveal hundreds of consumer data companies, all eager to sell you a database of prospects' phone numbers, email, and home addresses. Of course, you need to be sure that the agency you are buying the data from has acquired people's contact details ethically. Each person must have opted in to allow third parties to contact them. You really only need about 50 contacts, so you should negotiate to get these for free as a trial. Tell the agency that you just want to run a small test of the quality of their data, with the intention of buying a larger data set once your business is up and running, which you may well decide to do, so I'm not telling you to lie. In most cases, they will be happy to send you this data for free. Now's the part that nobody likes doing, picking up the phone. Just give people a ring and ask politely if they'd mind helping you with a new business idea that you're working on. If you use the word help, you'll be amazed at how forthcoming people are with their ideas and suggestions. It is human nature to be willing to help someone else, especially if you sound friendly. If you are embarrassed by the idea of wasting strangers' time with your market research survey, you could offer them one of your products for free when you launch, or let them know that you will stick their name into a free prize draw. I once spent about 6 months trying to launch a healthy food delivery company for older people. Imaginatively enough, I was planning on calling it Super Meals. To get some handle on what older people liked and didn't like, I bought a database of customers who had previously bought from one of the competitor companies and who had opted in to hear about other Meals on Wheels services. Perfect. I spent an afternoon calling up pensioners and asking if they'd mind letting me know how they got on with their previous Meals on Wheels supplier. They were so happy to have someone listen to their feedback, and I learned more about my potential customers from that than from the many volumes of press articles, market research reports, and other abstracted opinions that I worked my way through. In the end, that particular business idea was scrapped, partly because I learned from these customers just how complicated their individual needs were. Every person I spoke to had different dietary requirements, making a meal delivery service extremely complicated to set up. More than anything, I quickly grasped that my gut feeling of what would be an acceptable price for a product like that was way out of line. These were people living on a pension, who had to look after every penny. I tell you this story because I want you to know that it's okay to drop your idea. If, when you talk to customers, you realize that everything you assumed was wrong beyond the possibility of redemption, you can scrunch it up, throw it in the bin, and try something else. It's not a big deal. When you do talk to your potential customers, whether you decide to call them or meet them in person, here are a few key things that you are trying to find out at this stage. What do they think of your idea? You need to make sure that they feel totally able to give you honest feedback. Tell them that you are looking for the flaws in your idea. That way they feel they're helping you when they point them out. It doesn't feel good to criticize someone's ideas, even if they are a complete stranger, so you might actively need to encourage them to do so. You can ask them things like, if they were in your shoes, what would they do to create a great product in this market? What would they expect from your product? It's really good to get a sense of what would be important to consumers if they bought your product. What are the sacred cows? These are things that absolutely, under any circumstance, your product has to be able to do. Their answers might flag up some super detailed criteria that you would otherwise not have thought about. The packaging can't be more than 20 centimeters high or the product won't fit on the shelf, for example. Without such information, you could easily develop a product, only to find out at the final hurdle that it's just too big to fit on the shelf, or that there's some other equally banal problem. What other types of products do they buy? Find out which of your competitors' products your potential customers have heard of, which they've bought and which they haven't. Just keep asking why. Why did you buy it? Why did you stop buying it? Would you recommend it to a friend? For most of your questions, they just won't remember or won't really know why they did the things they did. But the point here is to get some clues as to what clever things your competitors do that you can copy. Or what things they're doing a terrible job of that you can maybe do better. When you're interviewing potential customers, make sure you set the tone right. You're really just having a conversation with another human being about your idea. Let the conversation go wherever it goes, rather than sticking to a rigid script. If you can take the approach of simply asking for people's advice, they won't feel threatened by your call. Once you've done half an hour's worth of interviews, you should have enough clues from potential customers as to what your product needs to do. You may well decide that there is value to be had in talking to even more potential customers. Don't stop doing this until you feel that you've learned what you need to know for you to move on. Topic 5. The competition. Day 1, 10:42 a.m. All businesses have some sort of competitor, or at least another company that you can look to for clues about what your customers expect. Once you launch your business, it's important to be customer-focused rather than competitor-focused. Having said that, when you're first starting out, the best way to get an idea of what your customers expect from you is to look at what the competition is offering. We can assume that any of the successful businesses in your chosen field will have spent years perfecting their offering, figuring out what the best price is, which sizes people want to buy, and so on. Since they've already done all of that work, why would you start from scratch and figure it all out again? In this vein, you should view your competition as your free research and development department. Don't be afraid of taking inspiration from what they've already done, to help accelerate the process of getting your own business started. I have a look around at some of the other brands against which I'm going to find myself competing. I try to figure out quickly what they're doing well and what they're doing not so well. A quick way to get a clue as to which brands are the most successful is to check out the category on Amazon or, in my case, an online supermarket. You can usually sort all of the products by popularity. By finding out which products are most successful, I can gain clues as to what my business should offer. You can make a little table showing the main competitors, listed in order of what size you think they are. Identify what you think they're doing well and what they're doing badly. The point of doing this is to get a quick idea of what has helped your most successful competitors get to where they are, and also perhaps what has held back your least successful competitors. What I learned from this super quick analysis is that the most successful flavored oat brands are around the same package weight, 300, 500 g. Unflavored oats are typically packed in 1 kilogram boxes. By going for a smaller weight, these premium brands can keep their price for the product within a sensible level, pound 2.45, pound 3.05. It's also clear that quality packaging is really important to support this kind of gram for gram price premium over the regular oats. Based on what is popular on the shelves, there is an opportunity to launch a healthy but tasty brand. Currently, this isn't what's on offer from the leading brands. Topic 6. Ask an expert. It's now an ideal time to use one of your special lifelines. You're ready to run your idea past someone who hopefully knows what they're talking about. I'm a huge fan of the value of asking the right questions of someone who has been there and done it before. In fact, a lot of what I've learned about business has come from just asking for help. Throughout my career, I've been amazed at how willing successful entrepreneurs are to share what they've learned with those who are trying to climb up the ladder behind them. My parents have always been hugely supportive of my entrepreneurial efforts, but in my early teens I began having questions that they just didn't know the answers to, such as how much margin does a supermarket expect to make, or which agency should I use to design my packaging and what sort of budget should I offer them. In search of answers to these questions, my parents asked the neighbors if anyone knew an entrepreneur. One of the neighbors said, "I work for this guy called Kevin Doran. I guess he's an entrepreneur." I was soon introduced to him and so began a long friendship. He had started a successful business selling food products to supermarkets and had some really relevant experience. When he heard about my door-to-door jam selling, it apparently made him laugh, reminding him of himself doing something similar as a small boy. After I told him, over coffee, all about my idea and my plans to sell super jam to the big supermarkets, he gave me invaluable advice about packaging design, supermarket promotions, and dealing with factories. I've found that everyone who has built a successful business did so with the help and advice of others. Perhaps that's why, more often than not, they are happy to give advice in turn to other people setting out on the same path. What's helpful about finding a mentor for your business idea is that they will be completely impartial. Ask them to pick holes in it, to suggest what they would do in your shoes and, perhaps, to make connections to people they know would be useful to you. Topic 7. Finding the right mentor. In my view, what's most important is that you find someone who has started a business as similar as possible to the one you are trying to start. That way, they will have been through all of the steps you are about to face and can tell you exactly how they did it, what the practical, time-saving lessons they learned were. Of course, you can't try speaking to those who are direct competitors, just someone who has used the same business model as you but for a different market. Topic 8. Clarity.fm. Perhaps you know some people you can phone right away to run your idea past without having to look too far. I also recommend, though, that you check out the service Clarity.fm. At this stage in the process, it is a valuable tool to find clarity about whether you're onto a good idea or whether there are holes in your plan that you haven't seen. This service enables you to contact, almost instantly, some exceptionally experienced entrepreneurs, authors, and advisors and ask them whatever you need to. You'll be charged a small fee, usually just a couple of dollars per minute, and you'll be amazed at the valuable information you can extract from a 20-minute phone call. It's kinda like one of those sex chat lines, but for entrepreneurs. Topic 9. Asking the right questions. Whether you are paying for someone's time or convincing them to let you pick their brains as a favor, you'll want the time you spend with them to be productive. It helps if you know exactly what you want to find out from them before starting the conversation. As with interviewing potential customers, you want the discussion to flow naturally, rather than being confined by a pre-written script. It's important that your mentor enjoys talking to you, otherwise they won't put much effort into the activity or be up for meeting you a second or third time. Try to find out what they have done in the past that worked, what actions they took that were successful. You're looking for tested, proven ways of doing things that you can copy. Anybody can give you a handful of unproven ideas, but only those who have started a similar business to the one you're working on can tell you what actually works. Ask your mentor general things like, what are the things you tried that didn't work? Why do you think they didn't work? What changes have you made to your product over time? What do you wish you had done from day one? If you had the chance to start over again, how would you do it? What was the most effective form of marketing? How much did you have to spend on marketing to get one customer? How much does your average customer spend with them? What has caused the most complaints or problems for customers? What are your gross margins? You might also ask some very specific questions related to your particular industry, such as, what do you see as the main trends affecting the industry? What is the conversion rate on your Google Ads? Where do you go for news and information about the industry? What blogs should I read? Which companies do you think are doing a good job and which aren't? What is your business going to do next? By sticking to questions about what actions they have actually taken, what successes and failures they have had and what plans they are putting into place themselves, you can see where they are putting their money where their mouth is. It's easy for them to tell you what they think you should do, but it's much more useful to find out what they've actually done in their own business. What we really want is to find out what has worked for them and to copy it for our own concepts. Topic 10. Beef up your idea. Day 1. 11 a.m. Based on all of the research I've done into the market and my interviews with prospective customers, I have a much clearer idea of what my product needs to be. Throughout this process, I'd strongly encourage you to make changes to your idea as and when you get new feedback or information. Change one thing. When you're developing your idea, there is a huge temptation to try to completely reinvent every aspect of the product so as to be completely different to your competitors, to sell it in a different size of packet, at a different price, with unusual flavors and to a business model unlike anything offered by the competition. It might well be that making one of these changes could provide the basis for a successful company, but if you change everything you'll just confuse the customer. For my product, there is a reason why all of the successful brands are packed in 300, 500g packets and are selling through major supermarkets. It's because this package size keeps the price point within reasonable bounds, and supermarkets are where people want to buy it from. Topic 11. The 4 Ps. The easiest way to define your idea is to write down the classic 4 Ps. It sounds like boring marketing textbook stuff, but it offers a valuable checklist to ensure you've thought through the key facets of your idea. Product. What am I selling? My plan is to sell a range of 3 super premium porridge oat mixes. They'll be packed beautifully, with a great packaging design. I want the flavors to be healthy but also indulgent and fun. Something more interesting than the holier-than-thou oat mixes that are already on the shelves, but healthier than the ones that are full of sugar. Promotion. How will I let my customers know I exist? We can talk in more detail later in this book about the different ways you can promote your business, but it's worth having an idea in your mind about where to start. You may well need to order some promotional materials today or brief a designer to create them. To promote my product, I will most likely hand out samples in the local stores, possibly at farmers markets and other events. I'd also like to try advertising online to see if I can find customers directly, rather than relying completely on sales to retailers. I think there's a good story about my product, so I'll try sending some samples to journalists, in the hope that they might write about it. Place. Where will my customers find me? I'll be selling my oat mixes through retailers. Primarily, my dream is to get the product into a supermarket, but I'll start out by supplying some small stores in the local area. I'd also like to sell directly to consumers through my own website, so that people who can't find them in their local store can still get hold of a pack. Price: at this stage, I believe in making a back-of-an-envelope financial model for your business idea. Anything more detailed is usually an elaborate waste of time. Many entrepreneurs create vast financial models showing line after line of how they predict their business will be performing 3, 5, or even 10 years from now. I've even done it myself. The problem with creating these complex models is that they are based on extrapolating from unproven assumptions that are always at least a bit wrong. In reality, everything will be tougher and take longer than you predict. Your business will also evolve so much and so quickly that these models will become redundant within days of being created. So why do people devise these complex financial models? Well, mostly because they're the best way of giving people like banks, investors, and government agencies the false impression that you know what you're doing. Of course, you don't. Nobody running a startup really does. You're working on an idea, a bunch of assumptions and, to be honest, a lot of optimism. So what financial planning is actually useful? Well, the way I look at it, everything boils down to a simple question of how much you need to charge for your product in order to make a profit. If that price is higher than what you think customers are willing to pay, then you need to tweak the product or the model until you get to a price that works. This sounds simplistic, but I really think that pricing is the question you need to answer, because if you get this right, everything else will follow. The middle of the road is a dangerous place to be when it comes to what price you should charge for your product. I have an overarching theory that I'd like to share with you. It may not be relevant for every business and market, but it is a trend that every entrepreneur should think about when deciding on how to price their product. In the past, the most successful companies in the world went after the middle ground, but this has now changed. The most successful companies today are not usually those who follow this strategy. In the 20th century, the companies that grew large and rich won this race for the middle: McDonald's, Kellogg's, Heinz. They created products that almost everyone buys, no matter if they are rich or poor. They are not the most expensive, nor are they the cheapest. But now, in the 21st century, the middle has already been taken by these established companies. The middle market is so competitive that, to succeed, new brands must focus on the edges, by creating either discount brands that undercut the big brands, or luxury products that offer something more, mean something more, or create a stronger emotional connection with their customers. In fact, the companies in the middle are typically in decline, with the opportunity for growth now lying at the fringes. Many of the fastest growing companies in the world over the past 10 years have not been those offering products with a middle off-road price. They are those whose prices are either super cheap or super expensive. If you think of the wild success in the past 10 years of Ryanair, or Southwest Airlines in the US, Primark, Poundland, Aldi, Uber and Amazon, it is clear that by being the cheapest brand in the market you can really clean up. You can totally disrupt an existing market just through the strategy of being cheapest. Sure, all of these companies had more going for them than just their low prices, but they wouldn't have been such a success without them. If you adopt the strategy of being the cheapest, as you grow you can invest the savings you make and lower your prices even more. It becomes a virtuous cycle that makes it hard for anyone else to come along and compete with you. At the other end of the scale, if you think about companies like Apple, Nespresso, Aesop, Innocent Smoothies, and Tesla, it's clear that you can also be a success by being the most expensive company in your category. All of these were bold enough to launch products that were wildly more expensive than those of their peers. When you choose the route of being the most expensive, you are partly putting a flag in the ground that says we are the best. But beyond that, you are able to earn margins that allow you to invest in marketing and product improvements that help you to cement your position as the best, which also makes it hard for someone else to come along and compete with you. The gap between rich and poor is growing all around the world. Markets are polarizing, and the middle class is being squeezed. An increasingly large number of people are on tighter budgets, while the number of wealthy consumers is also growing. This growing income inequality means that the market for discount brands is growing, as is the market for luxury goods, all at the same time. Whichever path you choose, don't hesitate to show the boldness needed to be either the cheapest or the most expensive within your chosen market. At one of these extremes is the safest place to be, rather than right in the middle of the road with everyone else. Setting my price. Day 1, 11:32 a.m. As you can probably guess, for my premium oats business my plan will be to launch the most expensive brand in the category, not the cheapest. So the first step is to take a look at what is already on the supermarket shelves. The most expensive brand on the shelves, gram for gram, is also the most popular, Nature's Path sachets, in a multipack of different flavors. They're on sale at pound 1.12p per 100g. Since the quality of the product that I want to create will justify it being the most expensive brand in the category, I'll work on the idea that my oats should be, say, 10% or more expensive than theirs, £1.23 per 100g. In my mind, £3 per pack seems like an ideal price point to aim for, based on the fact that the most successful brands are around that level. This means that I should work on creating packaging to hold around 250g of finished product. That's the easy part. The big question is whether it is possible to make a profit from selling at that price. We now need to work back from the price on the shelf, taking into account all of the costs we expect to have, to figure out if it's even imaginable that we can make money at that price. If not, we will need to change something about the product or the business model to make it work. Ultimately, my plan is to sell my product through stores, as well as through my own website, so here's a quick breakdown of how I think each of these channels will work. Selling through stores, Day 1, 11:38 a.m. The first thing to understand is what sort of margin a store would need to make on your product. For most items, you can expect this to be 30–50%. It depends on lots of factors, but for the sake of this exercise let's assume a retailer will need to make 40% on selling my product. Retail price, £3 retailer margin, 40%, £1.20 price to retailer, £1.80. Thankfully there is no VAT, sales tax, on my product. If there were, I'd need to take it off here to know the net amount I'd be receiving for each item after I pay the government their cut, which, with the VAT rate at 20%, would be 3.6p out of £1.80. The costs of the product can be broken down into a few components that I can easily estimate the cost of. It doesn't take long to check the prices for buying these in bulk online. Rough numbers are fine. Oats, 3 5p dried fruit/nuts/chocolate, 2 5p cardboard tube packaging, 4 5p cost of labor to pack the tubes, 1 5p plastic lid, 5p label printing, 5p total cost, £1.30. Based on these very rough costs, from selling through stores it looks like I can expect to make a margin of around 50p per unit, or about 30% on the price at which I'm selling to the retailers. This isn't an incredible margin, but assuming I can make some cost savings over time it will probably work out about right. Every business and product is different, but for a business selling a food product through retailers, you want to aim for at least a 40% or gross margin. It may start out less in the early days, such as the 30% I have calculated previously. Hopefully, as volumes grow, there will be cost savings that help to increase it to this level. This healthy margin structure will give you the ability to run price promotions and invest in advertising to grow your sales. Selling through my own site, day 1, 11:50 a.m., as well as finding retailers to sell my oats, I would like to sell direct to consumers through my own website. The web can be the greatest channel of all. Not only do you not have to convince a retailer to sell your product, you also have direct contact with your customers so you can learn about what they think of it. You also don't have to share your margin with anyone. Selling through a website, I decide that the retail price should be the same as it is in the stores, £3. Although I don't have to share the sales revenue with the retailer, I do have to pay a credit card processor such as Stripe, PayPal, or Go Cardless a small fee, 4%, depending on sales volume, and will also have to cover the cost of postage. Normally, an online store will have a free delivery policy if customers spend over a certain amount. My gut feeling is that customers will only want to buy small amounts, let's say 3 packs, and that they will be put off by any high delivery costs. A fair price for P&P, I decide, would be £2, free for orders over £25. Let's see how that works. Based on customer buying 3 packs retail price, £3 per pack x 3 packs typical order, £9 delivery charge, £2 total revenue, £11 cost of products, 3x £1.30, £3.90 cost of postage, £3.00 asterisk payment processing charge, 4%, £0.44 cost to me of cardboard postage box, £0.30 total costs, £7.64 total margin, £3.36, 30%. As you can see, although I don't have to share sales with the retailer, by the time I pay for the cost of postage, the margin works out about the same. These back-of-a-fag packet calculations have given me enough confidence that, if I price my oats at £3, I'll be able to make money. The only thing I need to consider now is what fixed costs I might have, that is to say, what things will I need to pay for just to be able to run my business. Fixed costs, day 1, 12:30 p.m., it's worth doing a quick sense check of whether or not you think it will be possible to sell enough of your products to cover your fixed costs. You need, in other words, to estimate your total running costs for, say, a year and then calculate how many products you would need to sell to generate enough gross profit to cover all of your costs. If that number seems impossibly high, then you need to rethink some aspect of either your product or your business model. This is where every business really is different. For some ideas, you will need to consider the cost of renting a shop, a food truck, or some other big overhead. In the case of my oats business, the fixed costs will be quite limited. I will have to invest in hiring a designer to create my brand and labels, £500 getting the product developed and photographed, £500 buying a template for my website, £150 buying promotional materials, £150 total, £1,300. This leaves £200 to buy the ingredients and packaging to produce my first batch of oat mixes. If I invest £1,300 in starting my business, then with a £1.30 margin on each one I sell at full price to a retailer, I will need to sell 1,000 units, £1,300/£1.30, to break even. After that point, I'm into profit. This doesn't seem like a crazy figure, So I'm happy to continue on the assumption that by selling my product through some stores and my own site I'll be able to sell them in the thousands. That's the end of chapter 3, A Journey of 1,000 Miles. In next video we will be reading chapter 4, The Product.